everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this cute little pocket bot. This is a small little stuffed robot that you can make with very little yarn. In fact, you can use some of your yarn leftovers to make some of these crocheted elements. And you can also use some leftover buttons to make some of these buttons on the robot's chest and the antenna and the eyes as well. This robot is made with very basic stitches, and I'm going to walk you through each part of this robot, including the stuffing of the robot and the assembly and the seaming of the robot as well. The finished robot, from the bottom of the feet to the top of this antenna, is about 7 inches tall, and it's about 5 inches wide as well. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, a 6mm J crochet hook. You'll need a pipe cleaner. This one's about 6 inches long, give or take. You'll need some buttons. Now we're going to be using buttons for the robot's eyes and the antenna and some of the buttons on the robot's chest. So this is a great way to use up some of those odds and ends that don't really pair up with other buttons, or if you have a set that you really like, but we're going to be using lots of buttons on this project. You'll also need a ruler or tape measure that'll help you measure as you go along. And a hot glue gun is optional if you want to just quickly hot glue the buttons to the robot. That's what I'll be doing, and I'll show you how to do that later. Alternatively, you could use your tapestry needle and sew them on with a piece of yarn, but you still will need this to seam the robot together. So this is something you definitely need, but the hot glue gun is an option. You'll also need some fiber fill. This is also called polyfill, if you see it in the craft store like that. And your yarn. The yarn that I'll be using is Red Heart Super Saver, and I'm going to be using a color called Gray Heather for the body and arms and legs and antenna of the robot. For the pieces on the chest and the buttons and the part where the eyes go, I'm going to be using Red Heart Super Saver in the spring green color, Red Heart Super Saver in cherry red, and Red Heart Super Saver in pumpkin. So you can change up the colors if you want to. If you want to use more of a solid gray, this is a heathered gray. I thought it would look kind of like shiny metal, sort of. You can change up the colors if you like to. You can make your robot bright pink if you like. It's totally up to you. But if you want to replicate these colors, this is what I'll be using for this project. So let's get started. Okay, so the first part of our robot is going to be the body. We're going to be making this is going to be lots of different pieces, and then we're going to put them all together at the end. So for the body part, we're going to chain 12. First, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Next, we're going to chain 12. So to make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So here is our starting chain. Now, in the third chain from the hook, this loop here does not count. We're going to work a half double crochet. So count 1, 2, 3 chains from your hook. Now to make a half double crochet, we're going to wrap the yarn around the hook, insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring through all 3 loops. So that's the half double crochet stitch. I like this stitch for these types of projects because it's a taller stitch than a single crochet, but it still gives you good coverage with the fiber fill. Okay, so next we're going to work half double crochets in each chain all the way across our work. So just work those across. And I forgot to mention this before, but I'm using the Gray Heather, obviously, for the body part. Now, you can use any color you like. You can make your robot look however you want. I kind of wanted the body part and the arms and legs to look metallic, so I chose the Gray Heather for that. So I'm just working half double crochets in each chain all the way across my row here. And if you notice this is curling ever so slightly, it's fine. It'll straighten out once we put some more rows in. Okay, and then just work a half double crochet in that last chain. Okay, so row 1 of the robot body is complete. So let's move on to row 2. What we're going to do is chain 2, 1, 2, And then we're going to work a half double crochet in this very first stitch and in each stitch all the way across. Okay, so keep going with that. Just work your half double crochets in each stitch all the way across. And this is, our robot is pretty small, so you should be able to whip one of these up pretty quickly. Okay, now I'm just going all the way across here. And in the very end here, you're going to work a half double crochet as well, that very last stitch on the row. Okay, so to continue with your robot body, you're just going to repeat row 2 over and over until this rectangle we're making is approximately 9 inches long. So keep repeating row 2, and then we'll rejoin in just a moment and move on to the next part. Okay, so I'm just working that very last half double crochet. And like I mentioned before, you're going to do this for about 9 inches. So I have like this sort of like strip happening right here. So once you're done with that, you can grab your scissors and cut the yarn and then fasten off. So our robot body is complete. So next we're going to move on to some of the other parts of our robot. So you can just lay this strip aside. We're eventually going to be folding this in half and stuffing it. So set this aside and we'll move on to the next section. Okay, the next part of our robot is the arms and legs. Now the arms and legs is the same process. So you're going to make 4 of them total, 2 arms and 2 legs. So let's make one of those together. So for the arms and legs, we're going to stick with this gray yarn and we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. We're going to be using the same stitch as well. So if the half double crochet, if you need to see it one more time, just back up the video to where we were making the body part, okay? So for both the arms and the legs, for each one, what we're going to do is chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next, we're going to half double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So again, this loop here does not count. So count 1, 2, 3 chains and work a half double crochet in that 3rd chain from the hook. And then we're going to work a half double crochet into the next chain. Let me get a little bit more yarn here. And then in each chain all the way across. Okay? So for row 1, you're just going to do that all the way across. And then what we're going to do for row 2 of the arms and legs is chain 2 and turn. And then work a half double crochet in that very first stitch and in each stitch across. Okay, and then what we're going to do is this row 2 that we just did, we're going to repeat that 2 more times. So chain 2 and turn, half double crochet in each stitch, that very first stitch and in each stitch across. And also make sure you're getting in that last stitch as well. And then let's do that one more time. Whoops, chain 2, turn, half double crochet in each stitch across. Okay, so that's super easy. We're going to be also, like the body of the robot, we're going to be folding these in half and putting a little bit of fiber fill in those as well. Okay, so the arms and legs again are worked the same. So just cut off the yarn and fasten off just like that. Okay, now I have already made a couple more because you're going to need 2 arms and 2 legs. So now that we're finished those, we can set those aside as well. So let's move on to the chest plate, if you will, of the robot next. Okay, so we're getting a nice little pile over here. I went ahead and grabbed the spring green yarn, and we're going to make the like a square to go on the robot's chest, and that's where we're going to attach all the buttons. Okay, so to make that one, that's going to be a square as well. So what we're going to do is put a slip knot on our hook once again, We're making lots of squares and rectangles today. And then for this piece, you're going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then in the third chain from our hook, we're going to work a half double crochet. So this loop once again does not count. So 1, 2, 3 chains from the hook, work your half double crochet in that first chain, half double crochet in each chain across. Okay, so just continue across, just like that, with the green. Let me just grab a little bit more yarn here. Okay, and in that last chain as well. Okay, so row 1 of the chest part is complete. Let's move on to row 2. So for row 2, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, turn our work, work a half double crochet in that first stitch, and a half double crochet in each stitch across. Okay, just working those half double crochets in each stitch across. And that very last one as well. Okay, so row 2 is complete, and then you're just going to repeat row 2 2 more times. So you're going to have a total of 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, which we haven't done yet. So work this row 2 2 more times. Okay, so I worked the row 2 2 more times, and then I'm just working that last stitch. Okay, so once you get those rows worked, then you're going to go ahead and cut the yarn and then fasten off with your green, just like that. And then the chest part is complete. So we're just going to add this to our pile. We have a nice pile going on. The next part we're going to do is the, it's like a skinny rectangle where the eyes are going to go. So let's grab the orange yarn and do that next. Okay, the part where the eyes are going to be attached is a little skinny rectangle. We're going to work that in this orange, the pumpkin yarn. Okay, so this is going to be very similar to when we made our green square over here, and you can see we've got a nice little pile of parts here. And we're going to put a slip knot on our hook, and it's going to start the same way as the green square did. We're going to chain 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Once again, in the third chain from the hook, this loop here doesn't count. 1, 2, 3, work your half double crochet stitch. So that's 1, and then another half double crochet all the way across your row here. This will be in the orange or whatever color you choose. Let me grab a little bit more yarn. And we're just going to work those half double crochet stitches all the way across our robot. Okay, so row 1 of the face rectangle is complete. So let's move on to row 2. It's just 2 rows. So chain 2 and turn, and then work a half double crochet in each stitch. That very first stitch and each stitch across. So just work those half double crochets. If you haven't done the half double crochet prior to this project, this is a great project to practice. We're using lots of these stitches today, and we're just making very easy little squares with them. Okay, so the face piece is complete. It's just like I mentioned, a rectangle. So cut the yarn, fasten off, and we can add it to our growing pile of robot parts. Okay, the antenna is probably the easiest part of this. So what we're going to do is, once again, I grab the gray. I'm going to make the antenna in gray. So I'm going to put a slip knot on our hook and chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to work, not counting this loop, the third chain from the hook. So 1, 2, and 3. Work a half double crochet into that third chain from the hook. Half double crochet into the next chain, and the last chain of the row. And then now the antenna is complete. So that was really fast and easy. So go ahead and once again, cut the yarn and fasten off. Now I already went ahead and made another antenna, so you can kind of straighten that out too. So now we have two. We're going to be eventually putting the pipe cleaner and some more buttons on top of that. So we can add that to our pile as well. So our little robot also has a knob on the chest part of the robot. So what we're going to do is, with the red yarn, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook, same thing we've been doing. And then we're just going to chain 2 this time, 1 and 2. Then we're going to work 8 single crochets in the chain farthest from the hook. So see here, this first chain that we made, insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop, you'll have 2 loops on your hook, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now in this chain that we did at the beginning of the round, just insert your hook into that. We're going to join with a slip stitch to close the round. So insert the hook into that starting chain that we made, bring up a loop, now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And now we have this cute little knob, and it has an open center, almost like a turn handle. Okay, so let's grab our scissors. We can cut and fasten off. Okay, next it's time to assemble all of our pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all the pieces that we've crocheted. We just have a big pile of pieces here. And I'm going to get the buttons and the other pieces, and we're going to kind of lay it all out and then start putting it together and stitching it up. All right, so I have all my components. I have my fiber fill, I have some scissors, my tapestry needle, we don't need the hook anymore, pipe cleaner, a handful of buttons, the knob, 2 antennas, the chest piece, the face piece, and we have 2 arms, 2 legs, and our body. Okay, so we have lots and lots of parts. So what we need to do now is, at this point, you can decide, do you want to sew all of your pieces on, or do you want to hot glue them on? What I'm going to be doing is a combination of sewing and hot gluing. I'm going to be sewing the body together and the arms and legs together, and then later, and the antenna. So all these gray pieces I'm going to be sewing. But then later, I'm going to be gluing the chest piece and the face piece and all these buttons and knobs on. It'll just go really quickly. However, you can sew all of this if you prefer. So let me just show you how we're going to do this. We're going to make the body first, and then this will be, now obviously we need to weave all these ends in, but this is our chest piece, the face part. We're going to have our arms and legs, which we will be sort of like folding in half like that. And then we're going to later be adding the eyes and the buttons and the antenna. Okay? So let's go ahead and let me just scoot all of this over. What I want to do first, now if you're going to be sewing the chest and face piece on, sew these on first before you start seaming up the sides of your robot. I'm going to be gluing them on, so I'm just going to put them aside for now. So grab your tapestry needle, and what we're going to do is sew our robot closed. And right before we get done, we're going to put a little fiber fill in there to plump it up a little. Okay, so I'm just going to grab, now this tapestry needle is fine. It's a little bit small though. This one has a little bit of a larger eye, so I went ahead and grabbed a larger tapestry needle. So we're going to start at the bottom. Now I have some ends here, and we're going to worry about those later. When you seam things like this and stuff them, you can just also tuck the ends and you don't even have to weave those in. So start in this bottom left corner. You're just going to seam all around. Now don't pull this all the way through because we're going to tie. This is actually going to become the inside of the robot. We're going to flip it around to the other side. Okay, so what we're going to do is whip stitch seam this robot together. Okay, so just go all the way around the edges. I'm sandwiching these edges together, and I'm just neatly going through both layers, trying to line it up the best I can so it looks nice and neat. And you don't want to come in too far. You want to stay along that edge while you seam. We're just going to go all the way around our rectangle. Coming up the side here, and then I'm going to go across the top. Okay, so I'm also going across the top here. Just try and line it up the best you can when you go across. And then once we get down to this other side, we're going to stop right before we get it closed, so that way we can get a little bit of the fiber fill into the robot. Now we're not going to overfill him because we still want the robot to look sort of geometric. We don't want him to be too fluffy looking, I guess you could say. Okay, so I'm just coming down the side here. The whip stitch is very quick and easy to seam up. Especially if you're going across the top of crochet and down the sides of crochet, you don't have to worry about trying to locate stitches to crochet into. Okay, so I have a nice hole here. This whole thing is seamed up, and this is where we folded it, so that's already closed. Okay, so I left this hole down here. Now, before I seam that closed, I'm going to go ahead and flip this right side out. Now make sure you take your finger down into the corners. Get your corners nice and neat. They don't have to be completely pointy, but you know, you want to get them nice and neat. Next, you're going to take your fiber fill and go ahead, not the piece we were using to seam, we're going to hold that aside, but tuck all these ends in because they're going to be part of your filling. Okay, so just stuff a little bit in at a time. That's the best way to do it so it doesn't get overly clumpy and you don't have sections that are overstuffed while other sections look sort of deflated. So you want to get enough in there, but you don't want to overdo it either. It'll look lumpy and too plump. Okay, so just try and get it nice and neat. And I think that's pretty good. Let me get a tiny bit more in this side part here. You can kind of feel around, see if there's any sort of empty spots, and then just sort of stuff some more in there. Okay, so then we can get our needle again and grab this same tail. Now I know we were seaming on the inside part, but now we're going to seam on the outside part for this, just this last little bit. Okay, so just go ahead and there's both those same two layers, and now we're seaming on the outside, so we want to just keep it nice and neat. Okay, so we're just coming up to this top corner here. Okay, now before you pull it all the way through, there's a loop here. Just go through that loop with your needle to create a knot. And then what you can do is weave your end in. And then this is a little trick. Come out on the other side, like just go in and then back out. Pull it all the way through and then give it a little tug. Snip it and then kind of straighten it out and that end will disappear. Okay, so our robot body is ready. It's sort of as big as maybe like a bar of soap at this point. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to get all the sewing out of the way first. So I'm going to tackle his arms and legs, or her arms and legs. You can make this a girl bot or a boy bot, whatever you like. All right, so grab one of your arms or legs. And then what we're going to do is use these tails to sew it. If yours are short, that's okay. Just grab another piece of yarn. But go ahead and fold that in half. And we're going to thread our tail. We're going to do this for all 4 pieces. Both legs, both arms. Okay? So what we want to do, if your tail isn't in the right spot, you can simply just run the needle down. Because we're going to start at the bottom corner like this. So just sandwich that together, and we're going to do this the same way we did the other part. We're just going to go all the way around and seam. We're going to make this one of the legs. Just go all the way around and seam that leg until you get to almost the end. And now take your finger, it helps a lot, and turn it inside out so it looks a little bit neater. Okay, and then take a little bit of your fiber fill and stuff it. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this part and stuff it, but it does look pretty cute. Okay, so then if you also have a tail, go ahead and stuff that in there too, so you don't even have to deal with it. Now, you can do your legs one of two ways. You can, now while we have this open, go ahead and also seam that shut as well. Now, you can do your legs one of two ways. You can make your robot have long legs, and you can do your leg like this, or you can make your robot have like short little legs and do your legs like that. So just kind of straighten out the leg, put it where you want it to go, and then you're going to kind of stack them like this and go in both layers, just like that with your needle. So I'm just going through both layers and I'm pulling it pretty tight because this is a leg that we're attaching. So just seam that right on there. Now, we can also, when you do this very last stitch, again, don't pull it through all the way and send it through that loop with your needle. And then, while we have everything on there, we can go ahead and weave that end in. Now I wanted to point out, see how this corner's sticking up? If you have that happen to you, sometimes I stitch a little too soon, just bring it back down and you can kind of tack that corner down. That happens a lot with like square and rectangular pieces. Okay, and then just send it right through one more time. And then don't pull it all the way through. Leave that loop there and then just send it through with your needle. And I'm just going to weave that in right now. Okay, so we have a leg attached. Yay! Okay, so we can snip this off, and the leg is sort of stuffed as well. Now if you have something like this, you just have to straighten it out a little bit. Just got a little bit misshapen here. Okay, so we have one robot leg. I'm going to go ahead and add the other leg and the other arms, and we will rejoin in just a moment. I'm going to add everything the same exact way, and we'll rejoin in just a moment. Okay, so I got the arms and the legs on, and the last thing we're going to sew on are the antenna. So the first, well, either one of the strands you can use to weave that in. So just thread your tapestry needle. And you can do one antenna. You don't necessarily have to do two. You could just do one with like a button at the top would be really cute. But I'm going to do two. So once again, fold that down and kind of sandwich it together. And we're also going to be adding the pipe cleaner. So if your antenna are a little bit floppy, the pipe cleaner that we're going to be adding later will give it a lot more stability. So just seam that on, and then you can use the other tail to kind of tie together. And then the same thing we did before, you can weave your ends in, your tails, through the body of the robot. So just come in through the body and come back out, bring your tail through, and then just trim the yarn. Go in one direction, like this, through the other side. Okay, and that's one of the antenna, just like that. Okay, and now I'm going to add the other one, and then we're going to start adding some buttons and these chest and face pieces and start to accessorize our robot. Okay, so once the antenna are attached, we also have this knob. Now I'm going to be gluing this on, so you can just trim that one tail, but this other one you'll want to weave in because it's on the outer edge. And it'll look much neater if you weave it in a little bit first. So once you get all of your pieces and you kind of have this blank robot here, we can just trim that off. We're now going to kind of position everything. Now you can sew this like I mentioned before, but I'm going to glue all this because it's just going to take me just a few minutes and it holds very nicely. So we can lay his or her face on here Here's our knob. We can add that to the front. I did these blue buttons here for the eyes. You can also layer buttons, which I love to do. You can add those to the center if you like that. And then I found this cute little heart button to give our robot a heart. And then just some other buttons down here. So go ahead and attach this center part however you want to attach it. And then we're going to work on the antenna. You're going to need 2 more buttons for up here and your pipe cleaner. Okay, so now Pocket Bot has all of the stuff attached, and we're going to do the antenna. That's going to make him look even more like a robot. So grab your crochet hook, the same one you made the robot with, and your pipe cleaner. This one is approximately 6 inches. And we're going to use our handle of our crochet hook as a tool. We're going to make this into a curlicue. So go ahead and wrap this all the way around your crochet hook, very nice and tight, and then you can just slide it off and you have a cute little curlicue. Now bend just the ends here downward so that we can glue them nice and flat. And then you can kind of pull this apart a little bit, and we're going to create sort of like an arch, okay? So we're going to put this on the antenna just like this. See how we have it? And like I mentioned before, this pipe cleaner will give the antenna some stability, okay? So it's going to kind of look like that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this, and then we're going to I grabbed 2 more little buttons, and we're going to kind of put those over top of where we glued to kind of hide the mechanics of all this glue and attachment. So here's what it's going to look like. I went ahead and glued this pipe cleaner on, and you can kind of shape it up because it's metal, and it'll kind of bend where you want it to go. So next, to finish off our robot, we need to just add these little buttons to hide this glue a little bit more. Okay, so our little robot is finished. Now make sure all of the hot glue is completely cool and dry before you give it to a little person to play with. And another thing that I wanted to mention as well is that when you have all these small components, like these pipe cleaners, buttons, knobs, all these smaller components, it's not designed for very, very young children, as it could possibly be a choking hazard. So just keep that in mind and be mindful, you know, in what you're putting on the robot as well, and the age group that will be playing with this robot. So that's it. That's how you crochet the Pocket Bot, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see the ones that you've made. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux video updates. Thanks again.